Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving right into one of the most unbelievable military upsets in human history, the Battle of Yarmouk. This was a moment where the very survival of the Muslim presence in the Levant basically hung by a thread. We're going to unpack exactly how three extraordinary commanders stepped up in unimaginable ways to act as the pillars of the army and prevent a total catastrophic collapse. To truly grasp the scale of what happened here, we have to talk about the numbers. The year is 13 AH, and the Muslim army is facing a terrifying existential threat. They fielded a very focused, relatively small force of just 34,000 soldiers. Now, these men were incredibly resolute, but they were about to walk into an absolute nightmare scenario.
Staring them down across the battlefield was this staggering figure, a Byzantine army of 200,000 soldiers. Our historical sources describe this imperial force advancing like this endless, terrifying wave of iron and gold. I mean, just imagine the sheer psychological weight of looking out at the horizon and seeing that. Put yourself in their shoes for a second. How on earth do you keep your nerve when the math says you've already lost?
Well, that brings us to Crisis 1, the Roar of Alka.
See, before the armies even clashed, the sheer terror of that Roman war machine threatened to completely paralyze the Muslim troops. As panic started to creep in, the ranks suddenly parted for a literal mountain of a man, Al-Qaqa ibn Ammar. Abu Bakr al-Siddiq once famously said, "The voice of Al-Qaqa in the army is better than 1,000 men." And honestly, he proved it right then and there. He steps out into the open, lets out this roaring cry that literally shakes the battlefield, and challenges a Roman giant to a duel. With a single flash of his heavy sword, he strikes the giant down. In one decisive moment, he completely shatters that Byzantine aura of invincibility.
But the Romans were furious. Enraged by losing their champion, the Byzantine commander orders a massive, all-out general charge. Suddenly, the sky blackens with a barrage of arrows that just blocks out the sun, followed instantly by tens of thousands of heavy cavalry. The pressure was suffocating. The Muslim right flank completely shatters under all that iron, forcing the men into a terrifying retreat all the way back to their camps. But when they get there, they're met by the Muslim women, who fiercely scold them and order them straight back into the fray, absolutely refusing to let them yield an inch.
Which sets the stage for Crisis 2, Tactical Brilliance, and Khalid. Watching this right flank collapse was the supreme commander himself, Khalid ibn al-Walid, instantly recognizable by his striking red turban. Now, instead of panicking or, throwing his entire army at the problem, Khalid executes an absolute masterclass in precision strategy. It's almost like a modern special ops tactic. He launches a rapid intervention force of exactly 100 elite desert cavalrymen. Just 100. Partnering with Al-Qaqa, they pull off a devastating pincer movement, piercing right through the Roman flank. They trap the charging Romans between the hammer of those 100 horsemen and the anvil of the returning Muslim right flank. It totally crushes the advance and restores balance to the field.
However, despite that brilliant maneuver, there was a horrifying reality they still had to deal with. The Romans had an endless human reservoir. Whenever one Byzantine unit got pushed back, their commanders just sent in fresh, fully equipped troops. It was an unceasing wave, so you really have to ask, how do you stop an endless human wave when your own men are completely exhausted under the blazing desert sun?
The Byzantine response to this Muslim resilience was devastating. Leveraging their massive numbers, the Romans unleashed a concentrated, relentless arrow volley. The sheer volume of this attack resulted in a grueling, tragic event known as the Day of Tearing. Hundreds of Muslim fighters literally lost their eyes to this blistering storm of arrows. Yet, incredibly, even blinded and in unimaginable pain, these exhausted men absolutely refused to abandon their posts.
This pushes everything to the breaking point. Crisis 3, Ultimate Sacrifice, and Ikrima.
With the army utterly exhausted, partially blinded, and on the verge of total collapse from the Byzantine cavalry, our third hero steps in. Ikrima ibn Abi Jahl steps down from his horse right into the middle of the chaos. In a gesture that froze the entire battlefield, he deliberately snaps his sword scabbard in half. He was sending a clear signal. There would be no retreat. Wearing a dust-stained white turban, he shouted to his men, "I've fought the messenger of Allah in every place, and I flee from him today? Who pledges to death?" In an instant, he transformed their despair into a burning resolve.
The response to that was immediate. Exactly 400 elite fighters stepped forward. Led by the fierce hero Dirar ibn al-Azwar, they answered Ikrima's call without a second of hesitation. Together,
These 400 men formed what history remembers as the legendary Battalion of Death. This suicide battalion didn't just hold the line. They plunged headfirst right into those Byzantine ranks. Fighting with bare bodies and swords against fully armored Romans, they created a literal human wall. They completely halted the Roman momentum. But of course, this incredible feat came at a very heavy cost. It cost Yarmouk his life. When the dust finally settled, Khalid ibn al-Walid was found weeping bitterly, holding his dying cousin's head in his lap. It is a really stark reminder that true victory often demands unimaginable sacrifice.
And finally, we reach the climax, the final rout.
So we're at the deciding fifth day, and it actually starts with a truly shocking twist. A top Roman commander named George, or Gerga, rides out demanding a duel with Khalid. But when they meet in the middle of the field, George doesn't attack. Instead, he asks Khalid about Islam. Hearing the truth, he converts right on the spot. He prays his first and only 2 rak'ahs in this world and immediately achieves martyrdom fighting for his new faith. As you can imagine, this was a massive psychological blow to the Romans. Realizing the Romans had reached their psychological breaking point, Khalid unleashed an all-out, coordinated general counterattack. He commands his forces forward, spearheaded once again by al-Kaka's crushing wave of fighters. The exhausted but deeply motivated Muslim army slams into the Roman forces and finally completely shatters the Byzantine lines.
That sheer terror initially planted by Ikrima's Battalion of Death completely took over. Panic spread like wildfire. The massive Byzantine army broke formation and fled blindly, tumbling straight into the Wakusa ravine, a steep, deadly gorge. Thousands of soldiers met their end there, permanently ending the Roman Empire's presence and dominance in the Levant forever. As the dust settles on Yarmouk, we're left with this staggering reality. Just 34,000 men overcame a heavily armored empire of 200,000. It happened because of Khalid's strategic brilliance, al-Kaka's towering strength, and Ikrima's ultimate sacrifice. It proves that unbreakable conviction really can forge miracles. So the next time you face seemingly insurmountable odds, ask yourself, do you have the resolve to break your scabbard? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep seeking out the extraordinary stories that shape our world.